So when we left off in the butterfly, Monique had just made an amazing discovery that Severine, who had visited her room, actually lived in her house, and she doesn't quite understand why yet. Do you have a prediction about why Severine might live in her house? I talked to some girls yesterday who were saying perhaps, knowing what we do about World War II, perhaps Severine is from a Jewish family and needs a place to hide. So let's see if that prediction is correct. And also remember to be on the lookout for those questions that we talked about at the beginning of the story. And if you're in class, you can put your hand on your head when you spot an answer. Yesterday, we noticed a lot of similarities to Number the Stars, and I bet we're about to find out why Monique's mother didn't tell her about Severine. So let's keep reading. Severine motioned Monique to follow her. They both tiptoed down the stairs and crept into the day room. There Monique saw the rug pulled back and what looked like a door in the floor. Severine pulled up the door and they both climbed down a very narrow set of stairs into a part of the cellar that Monique didn't even know existed. The walls were scraped clean and there was a small table with a tiny tray and supper dishes on it. Monique could see another small room with cots. It looked like people were sleeping on them. My mother and father and I have been here for a very long time, Severine whispered. We are being hunted by the Nazis, you know. We are Jews. There are many of us hiding all over France. But how have you stayed here without Maman knowing? Oh, Madame Soliage? She knows. We aren't the only ones that she has helped. How could this have been happening in Monique's own home, in her own home, and her mother never said a word to her about it? Your mother made me promise that I would never come to your room while you were there. But I don't understand. It puts you in great danger to know about me. She is protecting you. Monique started to say more, but it sounded like footsteps echoing upstairs. Could Marcel have heard them? Vite, Monique, vite, vite, Monique. Severine pushed her up out of the hidden room. But when will we see you again? Monique whispered as the door closed over the top of her new friend. I'm seeing a lot of hands on their heads. Ava, why do you have your hand on your head?
Because Uncle Heinrich tells Anne Marie that it's better to be brave if you don't know something. It's easier. So, and what's her name?
Monique, or Severine. Severine is the Jewish girl, and Monique is the
Monique's mother didn't tell her about it because she wanted to protect her.
Good. So just to repeat what Ava said, she made a connection to Number the Stars and explained why Monique's mother didn't tell her. She said Monique's mother didn't tell her because she wanted to protect her. And that reminds us, you can make a connection if you were thinking that too, of how Uncle Heinrich told Anne Marie that it's easier to be brave if you don't know the whole truth. And you can kind of see in the picture, right, that little hidden door under the carpet to go down into a room where Severine's been living. The next morning at breakfast, Monique didn't know what to say to her mother. Somehow she seemed mysterious, but she chatted to Monique cheerfully as always. Go to your garden, my sweet child, and cut some of your beautiful flowers for our table, won't you? Monique skipped out of the kitchen doors into her garden with Pinouf trotting after her. Pinouf was playing with petals of flowers as Monique cut them and put them in baskets, and when all at once the cat crouched and made herself flat against the ground. Her eyes were ablaze. Then Monique saw why. A papillon, a butterfly. Papillon is the French word. Everybody practice saying that. Papillon. And I see some girls noticing that this is going to help us know why butterflies are important in the story. It fluttered from the flower. As it landed on a bright blue iris near the wall, Monique gathered Pinouf into her lap. No, ma petite, just look. See how beautiful? They both sat quietly as they watched the butterfly together. Suddenly, the air grew still and heavy. The birds in the garden stopped singing. Pinouf hid herself in the folds of Monique's apron. Monique looked over the wall and saw tall, shiny boots. Her heart leapt in her chest. 3 Nazi soldiers glared at her. One reached over the wall and took the butterfly in his leather-covered fist. Jolie, n'est-ce pas? Which means like pretty, isn't it? He grinned at Monique and then he squeezed his fist. The other tall boots laughed. They mumbled something and walked away. So he just crushed this beautiful butterfly, and he was using a condescending tone when he said, "Isn't it beautiful?" Just like some of the soldiers in Number the Stars. Kind of reminded me of the scene where the soldier rips up the picture of Lisa, her baby picture. Remember, and he crumples it on the ground. That's what he did to the butterfly. He didn't care that it was something beautiful. "Mama, Mama, tall boots!" Monique shrieked as she ran into the house, and she blurted out what had happened in the garden. "Sacre bleu, those monsters!" her mother grumbled as she held her child as close as she could. "Mama," Monique finally sobbed, did they do to Monsieur Marx what they did to the butterfly?" Her mother did not answer. She rocked Monique gently and stared out the window. But Monique had her answer. Now she understood the sadness in Severine's eyes, the fear that was in the eyes of her neighbors and friends whenever Nazi soldiers came close. She knew now she had to protect her friend at all costs. She had to keep the secret that lived in her basement. And I see some girls making connections. I hope you're making some connections too to Number the Stars, and we'll discuss them afterwards. From that time on, Severine came to Monique's room as often as she could without waking her own parents or Monique's mother. Marcel could never know, which is her mother. When the girls were together, they played dress up and had midnight tea parties. They laughed and giggled and told each other their dreams. Monique collected things from the outside world for Severine to see and feel and touch. "What did you bring me tonight?" Severine asked softly one night. Monique reached into a small cloth bag and sprinkled rich black earth into Severine's hand. "This smells like the air outside," Monique told her. Then she handed Severine a bright flower from her garden. "This will be your sunshine. And now close your eyes." Monique slowly opened her cupped hands. Look, it was a glorious butterfly. "A papillon," Severine whispered in wonder. Monique put the butterfly near Severine's cheek. "Let its wings flutter," Monique whispered. Severine caught her breath and smiled. "Like the kiss of an angel," Monique said softly. "See, why is your hand on your head?"
Because one of the questions is why are butterflies so important in this story? I think this is one of the reasons why the butterflies are so important. Is because it's a really exciting gift for Sabrine, and you don't normally get butterflies.
Yes.
Can't go outside.
So C is making a connection that this is showing a butterfly, really important symbol in the story, because that was a really special gift, and it's bringing the outside world to Severine, who can't go outside. So it's a kind of a symbol of hope and life, right? Okay, let's keep reading. Tears began to fill Severine's eyes and roll down her cheeks. "I miss home, Monique, my own bed, my own kitty, my garden." "The Nazis won't be here forever. Mama said they will lose this war," Monique reassured her. "At our home," Severine went on, "we celebrate Shabbat. The holidays, Passover, Hanukkah, my mother cooked for days, and family came from everywhere. Then it all changed. We had to leave. My parents were afraid that the Nazis would kill us. You'll be home someday, you'll see. Papa is so sick from breathing the damp air. He hasn't seen sunlight for months. And Mama, she has to cover his mouth with a pillow so that his coughing can't be heard upstairs. I promise, Severine, someday you'll be as free as the papillon." "Let it fly now, Monique," Severine said. "When it flies, it will be as if Papa, Mama, and I are flying away. The girls took the butterfly to the open bedroom window and threw it into the midnight air, then stood and watched it until they couldn't see it anymore. So that builds on what Sia was saying, right? Because it's a symbol of their freedom in the outside world. Now, I know we've been reading for a while, so if you need to kind of shake out your shoulders a little bit, sit up straight so you can give your very best listening to the exciting conclusion of our story. All of a sudden, they looked up for what reason, who knew? And they saw Monsieur Le Dormi, the man next door, looking right at them from his window across the courtyard. Monique's heart leapt in her chest. Severine slid down under the windowsill so that Monsieur Le Dormi couldn't see her. The girls looked at each other in sheer terror. They knew they had to tell Marcel. They ran to her room and woke her. She was startled to see the two of them together. Remember, they've been meeting in secret. And when they told her about their secret meetings and Monsieur Le Dormi, Marcel sank to her knees in front of them. Mon Dieu, she said mournfully as she rocked with fear. Are you angry, Madame Soliage? Severine asked as she began to cry. So it would be very dangerous for anyone to know that Severine was there, just like how at Uncle Heinrich's house, Mama told the girls, don't talk to anybody, don't let anybody see that Ellen is with us. Kind of the same thing. They don't know if they can trust Monsieur Le Dormi. Oh no, ma petite. No, of course I am not angry. You are a little girl. You didn't ask for this war or to be kept in my cellar. You needed to play with children and you need other children. Marcel smoothed her hair. But you are no longer safe here, my dear. We must leave home tonight. Marcel began to pull on her clothes. We need to get you and your family out of the country. Let me see. Père Voulard will take your parents to the next refuge. You will travel with Monique and me. Yes, hurry, petites. Put on as many clothes as you can. Dress in layers. We can't carry valises or we will attract attention. So those are suitcases, valises, and see how they're putting on all those layers? Does that remind you in Number the Stars of when they get dressed with all the clothes in the casket and they have to put on so many layers because it's cold? And I see some great connections. I promise at the end we'll have more time to discuss. And if you're watching at home, I hope you're making some great connections too. The girls watched as Marcel, Père Voulard, and Severine's parents dug holes in the cellar floor and buried everything that would look like someone had lived there. Then it was time for them all to leave. Her parents came out dressed as a nun and a priest. They both cried as they held Severine and said their goodbyes. They would next meet in a village in southern France near the Swiss border. God be with us this night, Père Voulard prayed. Adonai yia atanu halai, Severine's father prayed as he cried. God will be with us tonight. So you have the priest praying and the Hebrew words. I see more connections. I can't wait to share some of these. Maybe you're thinking of the scene when Peter was praying before they ventured out, and poor Severine has to be separated from her parents for a while, but they will meet again, just like poor Ellen had to be separated from her parents. It's amazing how many parallels there are between this book and Number the Stars. It seemed that Monique, Severine, and Marcel had walked for miles in the darkness through back alleys, avoiding street lamps, taking great care to be as quiet as possible. With the first light of dawn, they had reached the countryside. They stopped to rest under a grove of trees, close to their rendezvous with the people who would take Severine to her parents. Marcel had just given the girls some bread and cheese when she pulled them both into a ditch. She motioned for them to be still and quiet. A patrol car full of Nazi soldiers slowly drove by on the country road. After the car passed, the three sat without speaking. So there they are hiding out, trying to be as quiet as possible. Finally, another car came driving slowly on the road. It stopped by a bridge a few hundred feet away and turned its headlights on and off 3 times. That's their code. It's time, my precious child, Marcel whispered as she pushed Severine out of the ditch and they ran toward the car. These people will help you And your mama and your papa, are you thinking about how there were codes here, just like there were codes in Number the Stars? Oh my goodness. And you're noticing in this illustration, the Star of David, just like Alan had. And so that's a symbol of the Jewish faith. At the car, Monique took something from the pouch she'd been carrying. It was Pinouf. Take her, Severine, Monique whispered. Tears welled up in Severine's eyes. She folded Pinouf into her sweater. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a fine gold chain on which hung the Star of David. Remember me, Monique. So they each gave each other something they really loved, right? Their necklace and her cat. We are practically home, my little one, Marcel said as she and Monique arrived at the train station in Melun. So at the train station, you can see there are lots of Nazi soldiers. You see them wearing the band that shows the swastika, that shows that they are a Nazi soldier. And then it's a very crowded scene. Let's see what happens. This was where they would board the train to go back to Choisy-le-Roi. But there was an unusual amount of travelers for that early time of day. The station was crowded and Nazi soldiers were everywhere, stopping people, searching them, and barking orders. Marcel took her daughter's hand. In the other, Monique clutched the chain necklace. As Monique and Marcel drew closer and closer to the gate where their papers would be checked, Marcel pulled a bundle of tickets and documents from her handbag. The entire station of people had to squeeze through the tiny gate to board the train. Suddenly, the crowd behind Monique and her mother surged and pushed so hard that Monique lost her mother's hand. Monique couldn't see her mother anymore. People pushed and shoved, and Monique lost her footing and fell. When she did, Severine's necklace slid out of her hand and onto the platform floor. Hear lots of gasps. Let's see what happens next. Quickly, she put it into her pocket, pulled herself to her feet, slipped into the line that was pushing through the checkpoint, and was swept with them into a shabby coach car. Tall boots were shouting at everyone. What if they searched her and found her necklace? And where was her mama? She could see through the window of her train car people standing in the platform waiting to catch a train going in the opposite direction. Her mother had been pushed into that line. Had her mother been pushed into that line instead of onto this train? She tried to see through her own tears to find her mother's face when she saw a girl alone. She looked thin and sad, very sad, like Severine. On the girl's coat was a yellow Star of David. Was it Severine? No. She could see now it wasn't Severine, but it could have been. Monique held Severine's necklace tight in her pocket. Oh, Mama, Mama, where are you? She cried as the train lurched away. So you see, Monique's heading back to her home, but across the way she can see this other train with a lot of sad looking figures on it. And we can assume that those were Jewish people that the Nazis were relocating and capturing. So if Severine's family hadn't hidden Monique, she's realizing that might have been her friend. The train rolled to a noisy stop. Saint Georges, the sign read, only 2 kilometers from Choisy-le-Roi, from home. Monique walked through the alleys and back streets that only hours before Severine and Mama had passed. Oh, Mama, she cried as she walked in. So her mom was at home. When Monique finally saw the familiar thresholds of her front door, she pushed it open and climbed the stairs. She could still smell her mother's scent in the air. She was tired, so tired, she threw herself across her bed and fell into this deep sleep. Then she dreamed of her mother's voice. Ma chérie, ma petite, the voice said. She dreamt a cool hand crossed her brow, and it seemed so real. And when she opened her eyes, she saw the hand was real. So when she got home, she wasn't, but now Mama's home. The voice was real. It was her Mama. Oh, my sweet, brave little girl, her mother cried as they rocked in each other's arms. I just knew I would find you here. So they both made it home, but they don't know for sure about Severine yet. So let's keep reading. 1 week passed, 2. Monique tried to imagine that Severine and her mama and papa, and of course Pinouf, were all safe. Then the tall boots would march by her front gate, reminding her of how hopeless it seemed. If only she had a message from Severine, a sign, something to know she was okay. I see some girls making a prediction about what that sign might be. And then one day, let's read and see if you're right. Monique and Marcel were planting next year's bulbs in the garden when Marcel suddenly gasped. Regard, Monique, look! Her mother pointed at the bleak sky above them, and a butterfly fluttered into the garden, and another and another. They both watched as butterflies started to land on the dry stalks of faded flowers. First there were 3, then 10, then 20, then 30. Neighbors came out of their cottages and peered over the wall in wonder. It's a sign, Mama, a miracle. Severine sent them. I know she did. She and her parents are safe. Monique held up her hand and a butterfly landed on her finger. She took it on her cheek. Its wings fluttered. A kiss, Monique said softly, and that part always gives me chills. The butterfly is that symbol of hope.